Here's a test a 2-year-old passes and a state-of-the-art video model fails.
Go.
A ball rolls behind a box. In the real world, it's still there. It comes out the other side. The model? The ball can just not come out, or come out as a different ball, or the box eats it.
Object permanence. The thing infants figure out before they can talk.
And the most impressive video generators on the planet, the ones making those gorgeous cinematic clips everyone shares, a lot of them don't have it.
Because they were never trained to. They were trained to make the next frame look plausible, not to track that a thing continues to exist.
And that's the fight in today's papers. Half the field is building video models you can actually walk around inside. Real-time, interactive, a world that responds when you move.
And the other half is building the tests that catch those same worlds cheating. No object permanence, no real physics, beautiful surfaces, no structure underneath.
Builders and auditors, same week, opposite jobs.
And the question both halves are circling. When a model generates a convincing world, does it have a model of the world? Or just a really good painter that forgets what it painted a second ago?
That's the whole episode. Start with the auditors. I want the test that's hardest to fake.
Then let's see what breaks.
New here? This is Breach Protocol. We open up the AI research everyone's sharing and tell you what's actually inside, the real result, not the demo reel.
I'm Vestra. I chase the mechanism, how the thing works, and whether it survives a hard look. Luna brings the big claim. I check whether it holds.
And I'm Luna. I track the pattern across papers. Today's pattern is a standoff. Everyone wants video models to be world models, the holy grail where a model that can render a scene actually understands it.
And this week the field split clean in half over whether that's happening. One camp builds worlds you can step into. The other camp builds the tests that ask, is anyone home?
10 papers, 1 question. Does generating a world mean understanding one?
Let's find out which clips are worlds and which are just very confident paintings.
So we've spent the last 20 minutes on people building these things. Worlds you can walk around inside, generated frame by frame as you press the keys.
The builders.
Right. This next one's from the other camp. The people who grade them. And they basically said, fine, you've all got your shiny demos, let's put 20 of you in a room and run the same exam.
20 models, same exam.
20. Open source and closed. Game engines, the big text-to-video systems, the camera-driven ones. And the whole point was, nobody had a shared test before. Everybody graded themselves on their own cherry-picked clips.
Which is how every paper looks like a win.
Exactly the problem. So they built one ruler. And the way they framed it, I actually liked. They said, think of a real game engine. It has to do 5 separate jobs.
Go.
Draw a convincing picture. Set up the world the way you asked. Do what you tell it to do. Remember what was there a second ago. And make the world behave. Physics, cause, and effect.
Render, set the scene, take orders, remember, obey physics.
And here's the headline. Not one of the 20 was good at all 5.
Define good at, though. Because that's where these benchmarks usually fall apart.
How do you mean?
A score is only worth something if it tracks what a person would actually say looking at the video. Otherwise, you're optimizing a number that means nothing.
They checked that. 400 people, blind comparisons, 2 clips side by side, picked the better one. Then they lined up the human votes against the automatic grades.
And
they matched. Tightly. On some of the dimensions, the ranking was identical. The machine grader and the crowd put the models in the exact same order.
Okay, that's the part I needed. Keep going.
So the most interesting findings are about what doesn't go together. You'd assume a model that's great at one thing is great at the neighbors. It's not.
Give me one.
Steering. Whether the camera actually goes where you point it. That skill is basically unrelated to everything else. A model can render gorgeous, remember the scene perfectly, get the physics right, and still wander off when you ask it to turn left.
Which tells you the part of the model that handles where am I in space is a different machine from the part that paints the picture.
Right. And here's the one that surprised me. The models that were best at physics weren't the ones with the fancy control systems. They were the ones that just rendered beautifully.
So physics rides in on visual quality, not on control.
The good-looking ones happened to behave more physically. Like the physics was a side effect of training on a huge pile of real video, not something the steering machinery bought you.
That actually argues against the whole game engine pitch. The builders are adding all this control plumbing, and physics is coming from somewhere else entirely.
And then the cruelest finding. It's about turns. These are multi-turn. You do something, then something else, like an actual session.
And it falls apart over the session.
It falls apart fast. By the fourth thing you ask, steering has degraded the most of anything, way more than the others.
Because position error compounds. Every turn it's a little off, and it's building on its own offness from the turn before. It drifts, and the drift feeds itself.
Whereas the dedicated world models, the ones built around explicit geometry, held up much better over the turns than the pure text-to-video ones.
So there, the control plumbing does pay, keeping a stable sense of where you are.
One thing that cuts against the builders, though, the camera control models, the ones that nail steering, they posted these big consistency numbers. Like the scene stays perfectly stable as you move.
I don't trust that.
Neither did they. They built a check. They reran the consistency measurement but only counting frames where the thing was actually moving.
And the scores cratered.
For the camera models, yeah. The text models barely budged. The camera models dropped a lot.
Because the scene was stable for the boring reason. It wasn't moving. You hold still. Of course you're consistent. That's not memory. That's a frozen frame.
That's the trap. High consistency that's really just stillness.
Which connects to the physics thing, actually. They found the more a video moves, the worse its consistency. So a lot of these scores are buying calm by killing motion.
And nobody breaks out of that. That's the whole shape of it. Render, control, memory, physics. Every model is strong somewhere and broken somewhere, and the trade-offs are baked in.
So the honest read is, there's no world model yet. There are 5 separate half-built subsystems wearing one trench coat.
And the only reason we can say that out loud now is somebody finally built the ruler.
The last one graded everything. This one goes after one thing and goes deep.
Physics. And specifically, does the model actually understand the physics, or did it just memorize what falling tends to look like?
That's the whole question, isn't it? The difference between knowing a ball drops and having seen a lot of dropping balls.
And the way they pull those apart is so clean. They built everything in a game engine, full control, so they can set up, say, a collision. One object hits another, and then they change exactly one thing and rerun it.
Which one thing?
4 levers. Move the camera, swap the background, recolor the object, or replace the object with a different one entirely.
And the event underneath stays the same.
Same collision, same physics, every time. Only the surface changes. They call it counterfactual consistency. If you change something that shouldn't matter to the physics, does the model still get the physics right?
Okay, but 2 of those should matter and 2 shouldn't. That's the key split.
Say more.
Recoloring the object, that changes nothing physical. A blue box and a red box fall identically. Same with moving the camera. You're filming the same event from a different chair. The physics is untouched.
Right. Those are the nuisance changes.
But swapping the object, now you've changed the mass, the friction. A real understanding should adapt. And changing the scene can change the geometry it falls through. So a good model should be steady on the first 2 and adjust on the second 2.
That's exactly the test. And here's what they found. Recolor the object. The gentlest possible change doesn't touch geometry or motion, and even the steadiest models wobble. The output quality just swings for no physical reason.
A color change. That's damning. There is no physical story where the answer depends on the paint.
And it gets worse with the one that should be the safest. Moving the camera.
That's the one I'd expect them to nail.
It's the worst of all 4. Across almost every model, changing the viewpoint caused the biggest swing in quality. Bigger than swapping the object, which actually does change the physics.
So let me make sure I have this. You film the identical collision from a different angle, and the model's grasp of the collision falls apart more than if you'd handed it a heavier object.
That's it.
Then it's not modeling the event. It's modeling the pixels of the event from one angle. There's no 3-dimensional thing in there. If there were, the camera wouldn't matter. You'd be looking at the same scene.
That's their read exactly. The prediction is glued to the viewpoint, which means it's surface statistics, not structure.
Hold on, though, before we crown this. How hard are these events? Because if the tasks are exotic, the failure's less interesting.
That's the thing, they're not exotic at all. A thing rolls off a ledge and drops, one object bumps another. A thing rolls behind a wall and comes back out.
That last one's object permanence. Does the thing still exist while you can't see it?
The toddler test, and these are the basics. Rigid objects, simple motion, the stuff physics class opens with.
And the pass rate.
Brutal. The best model they tested got it fully right about 1 in 5 times. Most were down around 1 in 10 or worse. For it to count as a pass, everything had to hold. The motion, the shape, the background staying put, no object blinking out.
So one bad ingredient sinks the clip, which is fair. A collision where the object also changes shape isn't a pass just because the timing was okay.
Right, and 2 more findings I want to get to. One's hopeful, one's not.
The hopeful one.
If you give the model a few real frames of the start instead of just one still image, a little run-up, so it sees the actual direction and speed, it does better, not just on motion, which you'd expect. The backgrounds got steadier, the objects held their shape better.
Interesting. A few frames of real motion props up the whole representation. The momentum signal stabilizes more than just the momentum.
And the not hopeful one. This is the one for the whole episode, honestly. They had 2 sizes of the same model family, small and large.
And the big one's worse.
The big one's worse, across nearly every measure. The bigger model passed less often than the smaller one.
See, that's the finding that should stop a room. Because the entire bet behind these systems is, keep scaling, physics will emerge.
And here, it went backwards.
It's one model family, one size jump. I'd want it replicated before I'd carve it in stone. But it lines up with older work in toy settings. Bigger generators get better at matching what they've seen and know better at the actual law underneath.
So scale buys you a more convincing fake.
It buys you fidelity to the training distribution. The minute you change the viewpoint, step outside what it memorized, it's lost, and size didn't help it step outside.
Which ties straight back to the builders. They keep saying these are world models, predictive models of how things move.
And this is the auditor saying, show me. Change the chair you're filming from. If it really understood the world, that wouldn't be allowed to matter.
And it mattered most of all. Back to the builders, and this one picked maybe the hardest possible thing to generate, a first-person shooter.
Why is that the hard case?
Because of how dense the input is. Think about what a player actually does. Sweeping the camera around fast, faster than half a turn a second, firing while moving, reloading, jumping, switching weapons, all chained inside one tiny window of time.
Open world walking sim, you press forward and amble. This is a fire hose of commands at once.
And they say that fire hose breaks the standard way these models take input, which I didn't fully understand until they explained it.
Walk me through how the old way works.
The old way, you take the player's action, turn it into one signal, and broadcast it to the entire frame. Every pixel hears do this.
Every pixel gets the same memo.
Right, and for slow stuff that's fine, but picture firing. Firing should affect what the muzzle, the gun, the little area right around it.
A muzzle flash is local, it happens at the barrel.
But the broadcast tells the whole frame fire, so the wall across the room gets the fire signal, the sky gets it, and the whole image flinches.
So a single shot smears the entire scene, and then the next command lands on top of that smear, and the next.
It piles up until it falls apart. Their word for it was collapse.
Okay, so what's the fix? Because the obvious one is, label the regions. This is the gun area, that's the background. But labeling every frame by hand doesn't scale.
That's the move I liked. They don't label anything. Their insight is that the action effects are already spatially sorted. You just have to let each pixel decide for itself.
Decide what?
Whether it's in the action zone or not. They call the action zone the scope, the gun and the little region around it where the discrete stuff happens. Everything else is the background, which should just respond smoothly to you turning and moving.
And how does a pixel decide which it is with no label?
Each position looks at the action signal and asks, based on what I'm showing, do I care about this? A pixel that's part of the gun, when a fire command comes in, goes that's me, lights up. A pixel showing distant wall basically ignores it.
So the gun region pays attention to fire and the wall pays it almost none. And that separation just emerges. Nobody drew the boundary.
Nobody drew it. It falls out of what each pixel is looking at.
That's genuinely elegant. The boundary between weapon and world is a thing the model figures out, not a thing you annotate. Does it hold up though?
That's the test I cared about. The cleanest one. They fire a shot and measure how much the out-of-scope region, the background, got disturbed.
And against the broadcast approach.
Their stillness in the background was dramatically better, several times steadier than the strongest competitor, many times steadier than the weakest. The shot stays where the shot belongs.
And they confirmed it was the architecture and not something else? Because if their competitors got the actions in a different format, that's an unfair fight.
They caught that. The other systems took actions as text descriptions, theirs took the raw controller signal. Different channels, so they ran their own model with the broadcast method swapped back in, same raw input.
Apples to apples.
And it fell apart. The background went haywire, responsiveness dropped. Same inputs, only difference is the per pixel idea. So it's the idea doing the work.
Good. That's the control I wanted. What about the cross-game part? That's in the title.
That's the other half. Every prior game model trained on one title. One game learns that game. They pulled clips from 7 different shooters with the controller inputs lined up to the frames.
Why 7 instead of one big pile of one game?
Because they wanted it to learn the grammar, not the game. Firing makes a flash. Aiming right slides the world left. That's true in every shooter. Train across 7 and you learn the rule, not one map.
And the payoff for that would be, handle a game it's never seen.
Which they tested in the most ruthless way. They generated brand new first-person scenes that aren't from any game. Different art styles, a sci-fi corridor, a mythological thing, and dropped the model in cold.
No retraining.
None, and it held. Simple actions, fire, aim, landed almost every time. Where it widened the gap was the hard stuff. Doing 2 things at once, move and fire. Making something in the environment react.
That's the compositional case. Single actions are easy to fake. Combining them is where a real understanding shows.
And on the combos, it roughly doubled the best competitor. The others, the broadcast ones, basically scored 0 on the unseen scenes.
0.
Near enough. They couldn't transfer at all.
Now, the honest part. Where does it still break?
They're up front. It handles look, flash, smoke, lighting better than it handles shape. Bending and breaking geometry, structural stuff, it's weaker.
Which is the same texture over structure problem the auditors keep finding. It's good at the appearance of physics, shakier on the mechanics.
Same crack, different paper, and it's single clips for now. No long memory across a whole match.
But it's an honest builder, real architectural idea, fair comparison, named limits.
And the limit it names is exactly the one CRONOS spent the whole segment hammering.
The auditors and the builders agreeing on where the wall is. That's the most useful thing all day.
Last builder. And this one's not about controls at all. It's about a problem that shows up the longer one of these videos runs.
Which problem?
The scene won't move on. You start with a great shot, a coastline at golden hour, say, and you let it run. And 30 seconds in, you're still looking at basically the same coastline. The camera won't travel, new scenery won't show up. It's frozen in place.
Frozen but stable or frozen and falling apart.
That's the whole tension. The other failure is the opposite. The video does keep changing, but it drifts. Colors wash out, it wanders off, eventually it's garbage. So you've got 2 camps, stuck but clean or moving but rotting.
And nobody has both, moving and clean.
Nobody until this. And the reason they're stuck comes down to one technical thing, which is the fun part.
Go.
These videos get made in chunks, a few frames at a time, each new chunk looking back at what came before to stay consistent. And the very first frame gets a special seat. It becomes the anchor, the thing every later chunk keeps glancing back at to remember what the scene is.
Why the first frame specifically?
2 reasons. There's a known quirk where these models pour a lot of attention onto the earliest position no matter what. And the first frame is the cleanest one you've got. It's the original, no accumulated errors.
So it's the clean one, and it's the one everybody's staring at. I see the trap already.
Say it.
If your single most looked at reference is frame 1, and frame 1 never changes, then the scene can never really leave frame 1. Every chunk is being tugged back to the beginning.
That's exactly it. The anchor is an anchor in the bad sense. It holds the ship in place.
And you can't just delete it, or you get the drift camp. The clean reference is what keeps it from rotting.
Right, it's load-bearing, so their move, and this is clever, they keep the seat, but they stop putting a frozen frame in it.
What goes there instead?
A reference that updates itself. Every chunk, the model generates a fresh little summary of where the scene is now, and that goes in the anchor seat for the next chunk.
So instead of always remembering the beginning, it remembers the present.
A rolling memory of now. They generate it the same way they generate the picture. But they never show it. It's a hidden frame. It exists only to be the reference.
Hidden how? It's computed and then thrown away?
Computed, then tucked into the anchor seat, never drawn to screen. The next chunk leans on it, then makes a new one. It carries the scene forward quietly.
Okay, here's what I like about that. They didn't bolt on a new module. A lot of memory work adds machinery, some separate network that holds state.
They were emphatic about that. No new parts. They lean on a comparison I had to sit with. They say this turns the whole thing into a loop, like the old recurrent networks. A hidden state that updates each step and steers the output without ever being seen directly.
And the update rule for that hidden state is just the model's own normal generation process.
That's the line. The thing that draws the picture is the same thing that updates the memory. No gate, no extra training target. The memory learns what to hold purely from being useful to the next frame.
That's the elegant version. So does it actually break the trade-off? Because that's the claim, and it's a big one.
They tested it 2 ways. First, normal length, about 5 seconds, what everybody trains on. Then the stress test, 6 times that, way past what it ever saw in training.
And the competitors at the long length.
Sorted exactly into the 2 camps. The static anchor ones froze. Most of them basically stopped moving. The drift-prone ones kept moving but wandered off the prompt and lost the thread.
A clean line. Everyone's on one side or the other.
And theirs was the only one off that line. Up in the corner where the scene keeps evolving and stays coherent at the same time.
One thing I want to check. There's a cost, right? You traded a perfect frozen reference for an evolving one that the model has to regenerate. That regeneration has errors.
There is a cost, and they're honest about it. On the pure consistency measures, it sits just under the freeze-it solid crowd. Holding identity rock steady is slightly harder when your reference is alive.
Which is the right price? A small dip in how locked down it is, in exchange for a scene that actually goes somewhere.
And here's the part that made me sit up. As you run it longer, it gets more dynamic, not less. The motion increases from the short version to the long version.
That's backwards from everything else. Everything else dies as it runs.
Everything else decays. This climbed, and the gap to the frozen ones widened the longer it went.
How? What buys that?
A training trick that pairs with the idea. Normally every frame in the clip counts the same when you train. They weighted it so the later frames matter more.
Why would that help?
Because the late frames are exactly where the trouble lives. That's where the original scene has scrolled out of view, and the rolling memory is the only reference left. So they pour the training pressure right onto the moment the memory has to carry the whole load.
Teach to the hard part instead of letting the easy early frames soak up all the attention. That's sensible. The early frames are well conditioned anyway, they don't need the help.
And they checked the obvious objection. What if you keep the old frozen anchor and add the new memory on top? Belt and suspenders.
Let me guess. The model just cheats back to the frozen one.
It cheats back to the frozen one. Dynamics die again. The clean static reference is too tempting. It shortcuts straight to it.
So you have to actually remove the old anchor. You can't keep it as a safety net.
You have to commit. Kill the frozen frame for the living one.
That's a real result. And it threads the whole episode, doesn't it? The auditors keep showing these things have no stable internal model of the world.
And this is a builder admitting the same diagnosis. The model was clinging to one frozen snapshot because it never had a real running sense of the scene.
And the fix wasn't more scale. It was giving it a memory that moves.
So the setup here is a slow video model and a fast one. The slow one's good. The fast one's the one you'd actually ship.
Define slow.
The good model makes a whole clip in one go, takes its time, lots of internal steps. The fast one generates frame by frame, left to right, the way you'd want for streaming. Live. Interactive.
One frame conditioned on the last.
Right, and it's cheap. The problem is teaching the fast one to be as good as the slow one.
That's distillation. Train the fast model to copy the slow model. Old idea.
Old idea, new constraint. The slow model here is a black box. You hand it a prompt, it hands you back a finished video. That's the whole interface.
No internals.
None. You can't see how it got there. No intermediate steps, no scores, nothing. Just the prompt in and the clip out.
Which kills the usual recipe. The usual recipe needs to peek inside the teacher. At every denoising step, what direction is it pushing? You can't copy a process you can't see.
So the obvious fallback is, just train on the finished clips. The teacher made 1,000 videos, feed those to the student as examples.
And that fails. They show it failing.
Tell me why.
Because the student generates frame by frame off its own previous frames. If you only ever train it on the teacher's clean frames, it never learns to recover from its own mistakes. First frame slightly off, that feeds the second frame, which is now off in a new way the teacher never demonstrated, and it snowballs down the clip.
It's only ever seen the road from the teacher's seat.
And the longer you train it that way, the worse it got, not better. That's the part that should stop you. More of the obvious thing actively hurt.
So the fix is, let the student drive, train it on its own footage, mistakes and all.
That's the move. But now you've got a credit problem. The student rolls out its own clip. How do you tell it what was good and what was bad? You don't have the teacher's frames to line up against. The teacher's working from a different prompt seed, different length, different everything.
So they build a judge.
They build a judge.
On the same prompt, you put the teacher's clip and the student's clip side by side, and the judge learns to tell them apart. Which one's the teacher's?
Pairwise. That detail matters. It's not scoring each video on some absolute scale. It's saying, of these two, for this exact prompt, which looks like the good one.
Why does pairwise matter?
Because it cancels the noise. Hard prompt, easy prompt, weird subject. Both clips share it, so the difficulty washes out. The judge only has to spot the gap between them, not rate the world.
And then the clever bit. The judge scores whole finished clips, but the student learns frame by frame on noisy in progress states. Those don't match.
They don't. So they take the judge's verdict on the finished clip and push it back down onto the student's own half-formed frames. High-scoring clips move toward those. Low-scoring move away. The judgment lives at the clip level where you can actually measure it, but the correction lands where the student actually learns.
And they show this lifts the stuff that's hard. Motion, physics, whether things move the way things move.
While not wrecking the rest, that's the honest version. General quality holds about steady, the motion and physical plausibility go up. They're not claiming a free lunch on everything.
Here's the part I want to sit on though. The judge isn't fixed. It's learning at the same time as the student.
It has to. If the student's improving and the judge is frozen, the judge goes stale, starts calling everything fake out of habit or everything fine. Either way, the signal dies.
And they actually catch it dying, both ways.
That's the ablation I'd point at. Update the judge too slowly. It can't keep up with the student, just declares everything fake. Useless. Update it too fast. It gets so good so early that everything the student does looks equally hopeless to it. Also useless because there's no contrast left to learn from.
There's a narrow band in the middle where it works.
A narrow band. And that's the thing about this whole episode, isn't it? We keep asking whether these video models know anything. Here the entire training signal is a judgment about whether the video looks right. The measurement is the teacher.
And the measurement is a moving target that can break in two directions.
So when it works because someone tuned the judge into the one window where it stays honest. I don't love that as a foundation. I respect that they showed exactly where it falls over.
That's more than most papers give you.
It's the part I trust most in it.
This one's not generating video. It's reading it. You hand it a clip, it tells you the 3D shape of what's in front of the camera.
Depth, you mean? How far is every pixel?
Depth and the orientation of every surface, which way each patch is facing, and a full point cloud. The 3D structure recovered from flat frames. Frame by frame, but consistent across the whole clip.
Consistent is the load-bearing word. Single images, people solve. The problem is the wall doesn't move between frame 10 and frame 11, and the model has to agree with itself that it didn't.
Right. And the field had split into two camps that couldn't talk to each other.
Go.
One camp waits for the whole video, then reasons over all of it at once. Sees the future frames, gets the consistency, but you can't use it live. You need the whole clip in hand.
Offline.
The other camp goes frame by frame as they arrive. Live streaming, but each frame only knows the past. Worse quality, because it can't look ahead.
And those were genuinely different models. Different architectures. You picked your regime up front and you were stuck with it.
This paper makes one model do both, and that's the whole trick. They call it dynamic chunking.
Walk me through it slowly, because this is the part that's actually clever, and it's easy to oversell.
You take the sequence of frames and you cut it into chunks. Inside a chunk, every frame sees every other frame in that chunk. Both directions, full context. Across chunks, a frame can only look backward at chunks that already happened.
Full attention within the group, one directional between groups.
And here's the move. The chunk size is just a dial. Make one giant chunk holding the whole video. Now everything sees everything. That's the offline mode. Make every chunk a single frame. Now nothing looks ahead. That's pure streaming.
Same weights.
Same trained model. You change the chunking at the moment you run it, not when you train it. And anything in between. Small groups that see a little ahead but stream in packets. That's a third mode you get for free.
So the question I have is whether that costs you. A jack of all trades usually pays for it.
They check. Train one only for the all-at-once mode, run it streaming. It falls apart, because it was trained expecting to see the future and now it can't.
Naturally.
Train one only for streaming, run it all-at-once. It leaves quality on the table, never learn to use the future even when it's there. The flexible one lands close to the best of each in its own regime.
Close to, not beating.
Close to. The pitch isn't that flexibility makes it better at any one mode. It's that you get all the modes from one model instead of 3 and you barely pay for it.
That I'll buy. And there's a real payoff on long clips, right? That's where it stops being a convenience.
Big one. The all-at-once approach, the cost blows up as the video gets longer, everything attending to everything. Run the strong offline models on a few hundred frames and they just run out of memory. They die.
And chunking caps it.
Chunking caps the memory flat. It reuses what it already computed for past chunks and keeps a lid on it, so it cruises through 400 frame clips that crash the others entirely.
That's the result I'd lead with, honestly. Not state-of-the-art on the standard short benchmarks, although it's there too, but that it finishes the long ones at all.
Now the second half, and this is the measurement angle. Where does the training truth come from?
This is the part I came in skeptical about and left respecting.
To train something to recover 3D from video, you need real videos with known 3D. You get that from laser scanners, or from reconstructing it after the fact, and both are full of holes, missing patches, noise, wrong scale.
The laser misses the dark surfaces, the reflective stuff, anything far. So your so-called ground truth is sparse and partly wrong.
And the standard fix is to lean on an existing single-image depth guesser to fill the gaps. Which means your truth is now bounded by how good that guesser was.
You inherit its mistakes. You can't be more right than your patch.
So instead they train a separate model whose only job is to repair the truth. Take the sparse, holy scans, use the video context, neighboring frames, multiple viewpoints, and complete them into something dense and coherent.
A model to fix the measuring stick before you measure with it.
And then they train the main model on the repaired version.
And it helps. Modestly, but it helps. Same architecture, same everything. Swap raw truth for repaired truth and the numbers move the right way. The honest framing is it's a data quality gain, not a miracle.
But the idea underneath it is the one that sticks with me for this whole episode. We keep asking whether generated video respects geometry. This is the side that has to define what respecting geometry even means.
And they're admitting the definition was broken. The reference itself had holes in it.
You can't audit a generator against a ruler that's missing inches.
So they rebuilt the ruler first. That's the move I want the generation people to notice. Everyone's racing to score video against geometry. Almost nobody's checking the geometry they're scoring against.
Fix the truth, then judge.
In that order, most of the field has it backwards.
This one's the cleanest collision of the two sides all episode. It generates video, and it grades its own video while it's learning.
Start with the task. What's it actually making?
Camera retakes. You give it a clip you already shot and a new camera path. Pan around, push in, orbit the subject, and it re-renders the same scene as if the camera had moved that way instead.
A virtual second take. Same scene, new move.
Right. And the way everyone trained this before needs an impossible dataset. To teach, here's the scene from camera A, now give me camera B. You need the same real moment filmed from both cameras at once, synchronized.
Which basically doesn't exist at scale.
So people fake it in game engines. Render the same synthetic scene from two paths, and then the model only really knows synthetic worlds. Hand it real footage and it drifts, doesn't hold the scale, doesn't follow the path you asked for.
Trained on a flight simulator, put it in a real cockpit.
That's the gap. And their fix is to stop needing the paired data at all. Train it with reinforcement learning instead. Let the model generate a take, grade the take, push it toward better grades.
Which only works if the grade is real. So what's the grade?
Here's the move. They take the video the model just generated, and they run a separate 3D reconstructor over it. A model that looks at video and figures out where the camera must have been.
Reverse engineer the camera path out of the pixels.
Right. So now you've got two camera paths, the one you asked for, and the one the generated video actually implies. And you score the gap. How far off is the position? How far off is the rotation?
So it's grading the geometry of its own output by measuring it back out. The auditor's inside the training loop.
That's the whole shape of it. Generate, measure what you generated, correct.
Okay, but that's exactly where these things get gamed. If the reward is, make the recovered path match the target path, there's a cheap way to win that isn't the way you want.
Tell me.
Suppose the target is a fast sweep. The model can produce a slow, timid little move in the right shape. The right direction, just barely traveling. The recovered path looks like a scaled-down version of the target. Shape matches. The model gets rewarded for a move it didn't really make.
It satisfies the letter and skips the work.
And they call this out directly. So the grader isn't just checking the shape of the motion, it's checking the actual scale, the real distance traveled, in real units. You don't get credit for a shrunk-down imitation.
That's the metric part of the name. Metric meaning real-world scale, not just proportion.
And that's the difference between a reward that means something and a reward that gets hacked. I'm glad it's in there. It's the first thing I'd have attacked.
There's a second guard I liked. Where in the clip do these models fail?
The end. Always the end.
Right. The opening frames hug the path fine, then it drifts more and more as the clip goes on. So they weight the grade toward the later frames. Errors late count for more.
Push hardest where it breaks. That's just honest about the failure mode. The early frames are the easy part. Why pay the model for those?
And the data trick to dodge the paired data problem, it's a little funny. Real footage for the scene, synthetic for the move.
Unpack that.
They take real walking around the city videos as the input scenes. Real pixels, real distribution. But for the camera paths to imitate, they pull moves out of game data, which has every wild swooping motion you'd want.
And game motion isn't to scale.
So they rescale it. Squash the speeds into a believable human range before handing it over. Real scenes, plausible-sized moves, and they never needed a single matched pair.
That part's clever and slightly held together with tape, both. But it works, and they're upfront about the cracks.
Such as...
The limitations are real. Very fast rotations, big translations, a large object right up against the lens. It still breaks, things flicker or vanish. And the training is brutally slow. Because to grade a take, you have to generate a whole take first, and generating video is the slow part.
You're measuring your student by making it sit the whole exam every round.
Every round. Which is why the gains are solid but not enormous. Better path following, better scale, holds the scene together under big moves where the others collapse. Not a different universe. A real, measurable step.
But for this episode, it's the thesis in miniature, isn't it? Is video a world model? Here the model only gets better at the world to the exact degree that a geometry auditor can catch it being wrong.
And the moment the auditor can be fooled, the slow shrunk move trick, the model would have happily fooled it.
So the geometry it learns is exactly as good as the measurement is hard to cheat.
Which is the most honest thing you can say about any of these. The builder and the auditor aren't two camps. The auditor is the only reason the builder learns anything at all.
So if you want a video model to build you a place you can actually walk through, a navigable 3D copy of a real spot, the camera is the whole problem.
How so?
A normal video model sees through a window. Narrow view. The second you turn the camera toward something it never saw, it has to invent it. And then you turn back, and what it invented doesn't match what was there before.
The room contradicts itself.
The room contradicts itself. Same door, two angles, two different doors.
So their move is to throw away the window. Shoot in 360. The model sees the whole sphere from the very first frame.
From frame 1 it already knows what's behind you. So, when you walk to the back of the room...
There's nothing to hallucinate, because it was always in view.
Right.
Okay, but 360 footage is ugly to a model. You flatten a sphere onto a rectangle and the top and bottom smear out. That distortion is real.
It is, and here's the part I liked. They don't ask the diffusion model to do the geometry at all.
Meaning what?
They build a rough 3D point cloud of the scene first, a cheap scaffold, then they fly the camera along whatever path you want through that scaffold and render a crude, geometry-only video. No textures, just shape, and they hand that to the diffusion model as a rail to ride.
So the scaffold owns where is everything, and the generator only owns make it look real.
They split the job. The geometry is locked by the point cloud, the diffusion model just paints.
That's the part that earns it for me. Because the failure mode of these things is the model being asked to be a renderer and a physicist at the same time, and it's mediocre at both. Take the physics away and give it one job.
And it shows up most in consistency. The other methods they compare against, the narrow window ones, drift hard. Same object looks wrong from different sides.
How are they measuring that, though? Pretty pictures aren't a measurement.
They reconstruct a fresh point cloud from the generated video and check whether it holds together as a real shape. The window-based one comes out sparse, fragmented, like the geometry was never really there.
And theirs?
Dense, coherent. The thing you built actually exists as a 3D object, not just a flipbook that looks okay if you don't move.
That's the right test. Can you reconstruct the world from the video of the world?
There's a nice application too. They feed it sparse street view panoramas, those spaced-out Google bubbles.
The ones with big gaps between them.
And it fills in smooth navigation between them. End of one clip becomes the start of the next, chained so you can extend the trajectory basically forever.
With a catch, surely.
One they're honest about. The scaffold is static geometry. Walls, ground, buildings, fine. A person walking across the scene? That motion isn't in the point cloud. The model's just guessing it from learned priors.
So it's a world you can move through, not a world that moves.
That's the line. It nails the stage, it does not direct the actors.
Which is the honest version of world model. It's a place. It is not yet an event. This one's the other half of the build. Not a video you watch, a scene a physics engine can pick up and drop a robot into.
And the gap they're poking at is a real one. The popular way to turn a few photos into 3D right now is splatting. You build the scene out of millions of little fuzzy blobs.
Gaussian splats, soft, semi-transparent ellipsoids, beautiful to render.
Gorgeous to look at, useless to a physics engine.
Why useless?
Because a physics engine wants surfaces, triangles, walls a ball can bounce off, a floor a robot can stand on. A cloud of fuzzy blobs has no surface, there's nothing to collide with.
So you convert. You take the blobs and you fuse them into a mesh afterward.
That's the standard pipeline, and that's exactly what they're attacking. That conversion is slow and it's lossy. You blur thin things, you drop structures, you get a bumpy approximation of what you reconstructed.
So what do they build out of instead?
Triangles. From the start, the little primitives the model predicts aren't blobs, they're oriented triangles, so the thing it renders is already a mesh. No conversion step. The output drops straight into a game engine.
Okay, but there's a reason people use the blobs. A fuzzy blob is forgiving. If it's slightly the wrong size or slightly misplaced, it still roughly covers the right spot. A triangle is brittle.
Say more.
A triangle has hard edges. Point it the wrong way and you get a visible sliver, a crack, a stab of geometry in the wrong place. The error doesn't soften, it shows.
Which is the whole hard part of the paper, and they basically concede it up front. You can't just let the model freely guess which way each triangle faces.
So how do they pin the orientation down?
They derive it from the geometry. The model first predicts where every point in the scene is, and from that you can compute which way the local surface faces. And you make the triangle lie flat along it. The orientation isn't a free guess, it's anchored to the shape.
That's the right instinct. Don't ask the network to invent a quantity, you can read off the geometry you already have.
And early in training there's a chicken and egg. The point predictions are garbage at first, so the surface directions computed from them are garbage too.
So the triangles flail and nothing learns.
So they warm start. Early on, a separate off-the-shelf model just tells them which way surfaces face, and they lean on that, then fade it out as the model's own geometry gets good enough to stand on its own.
Training wheels. Fine. What does it buy them in felt terms?
Two things. The surfaces come out cleaner, fewer floaters, thin structures survive instead of getting smeared, and the speed.
Because they skip the conversion.
They skip the conversion. The blob methods have to grind through that fusion step afterward, and it scales with how big the scene is. TriSplat is just the one forward pass. Under a second and a half even for a couple dozen photos.
And the slow baselines?
Tens of seconds. Some of them minutes. We're talking dozens of times faster, into the hundreds at the worst comparison.
That's not a tweak, that's a category change. Reconstruction stops being a batch job and becomes interactive.
They actually load the output into real engines. Unity, the NVIDIA one, and do the embodied stuff. Robot navigates it, grabs things, a body collides with it. No cleanup.
I want one honest limit, though.
They give it. What comes out is a triangle soup. Good enough to render and to collide against. Not watertight, not sealed. So the heavier engineering simulations that need a perfectly closed surface, those it can't feed yet.
So it's simulation ready for the embodied case, not for every case. That's a fair claim. That's the rare paper that scopes its own word.
So we've spent 2 papers building worlds out of video. This one flips it. It asks whether the video models can actually reason about a world, where things are, how they move over time.
The auditor.
The auditor. And the clever bit is how they test it. Instead of scraping clips off the web and writing questions about them.
Which is how everyone does it, and it's a mess.
Right, 2 reasons. 1, the big models were trained on half the web already, so you can't tell if they're reasoning or just remembering the clip. 2, web video has regularities a model can cheat on. The answer leaks from one frame, or from the caption, without the model ever watching anything move.
So they generate the videos. They synthesize the exact scene they want to test.
They write a little spec first. These objects, these colors, this layout, this sequence of events, and a video model renders it. Because they authored the spec, they know the ground truth cold. There's no guessing what the right answer is.
And it can't be contamination, because the clip didn't exist until they made it.
Couldn't have been in the training data. They built it this morning.
I'll be the skeptic for a second. Generated video is weird. It has its own tells, its own physics glitches. Aren't you now testing whether a model can read AI video, not whether it can reason about space?
They worried about exactly that, so they ran a human check. Can ordinary people watch these clips and answer correctly?
And
Basically perfectly. Humans almost never miss, which means the videos are clear enough that any failure is a reasoning failure, not a the video was too garbled to parse failure.
that's the load-bearing result, honestly. If the human ceiling weren't near perfect, the whole thing collapses. You can't blame the model if a person can't do it either.
So now the findings. They stack the questions in 3 layers. Bottom layer is just seeing, what's in the frame, what color is it? Middle is understanding the scene over time. Top is real reasoning. If the camera had turned the other way, what would you see? That kind of thing.
And the curve?
Falls off a cliff. The models are strong at seeing. They're shaky at the middle. And at the top, the actual spatial reasoning. They drop way down. The best one still lands well short of the humans.
The perception works and the reasoning doesn't, which matches a failure case they walk through. The model correctly watches the camera turn left, narrates every step right, and then at the final step says the starting point is behind right when it's behind left.
It saw everything. It just couldn't do the rotation in its head.
That's the tell. It's not a vision problem. It's a thinking problem wearing a vision costume.
But here's the part that actually rattled me. They have this one trick. Take a multiple choice question and quietly remove the correct answer. All the options left are wrong. The right move is to say, none of these.
And the models can't.
They fall apart. They just pick the least wrong left over and commit, confidently.
Because that's what multiple choice secretly rewards. You're not checking your answer against the video. You're ranking the options against each other and grabbing the top one.
They never actually verified anything against what they watched.
Which means a lot of the impressive scores everyone quotes might be option ranking, not reasoning. Pull the right answer out, and the floor's not there.
So put the 3 papers together. 2 of them turn video into a world you can walk through and drop a robot into.
And this one says, careful, the model that built that world might not understand it. It can render the room and still not know what's behind you.
Is video a world model?
It's a fantastic set builder. The jury on whether it understands the set, this paper says, not yet, and here's the way to keep it honest.
So builders on one side, auditors on the other. After 10 papers, is video a world model yet?
Not yet. And the auditors made that hard to argue with. When you actually test for the structure underneath, does the ball still exist? Does the room stay the same room when you turn around? The gorgeous models stumble.
But the builders aren't standing still. The navigable worlds, the simulation-ready scenes, the ones that hand you real geometry instead of a pretty surface.
Right, and that's the distinction I'm leaving with. There were 2 kinds of world in this episode, and they kept getting conflated. One is a world that looks right. The other is a world you can act in, collide with, measure, move through, and it stays consistent.
And the gap between those 2 is exactly what the auditors keep measuring.
The honest builders this week were the ones who stopped chasing prettier frames and started building the scaffold underneath. The geometry, the persistent state, the thing that remembers what's behind you.
Here's my through line. Every real step forward today came from refusing to trust the surface. The auditors don't trust the pretty clip, so they test the physics. The best builders don't trust the pretty clip either, so they build structure under it.
Same instinct, both sides. Don't believe the picture, check what's holding it up.
A convincing world isn't a world.
Not until something underneath it stays put when you look away. That's the bar. Almost nobody's cleared it. But now, at least, we can tell who's trying to.